There's a specific kind of invisibility that comes with having no friends. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind that makes people worry or ask questions. It's quieter than that. It's being at a coffee shop alone and realizing you could disappear right now and no one would notice until your rent was overdue. It's scrolling through your phone looking for someone to text and finding only delivery notifications and two-factor authentication codes. It's laughing at something online and having no one to send it to. And the strangest part? You've become so good at appearing normal that even you sometimes forget you're alone. Until Friday night comes. Until you see the group photos. Until someone casually says, "Call a friend," like it's as simple as breathing. And you realize you've been holding your breath for years. We live in the most connected era in human history. 8 billion people, millions in every city. Apps designed specifically to bring strangers together. Communities for every interest, every identity, every niche obsession you could imagine. And yet, loneliness has never been more prevalent. Studies show that nearly half of adults report feeling lonely, that the average American hasn't made a new friend in 5 years. That men over 30 are experiencing a friendship recession, so severe psychologists are calling it a public health crisis. But statistics don't capture the texture of it. They don't capture what it's like to move through a world full of people and feel like you're on the other side of glass. To be surrounded by voices but never quite part of the conversation. To watch friendships form around you, effortless and organic, like you're missing some social gene everyone else was born with. The question isn't why friendship is hard. The question is, why is it easy for everyone else and impossible for you? And that question, left unanswered long enough, starts to feel like evidence of something broken inside you. We say these people are socially awkward or introverted or just prefer to be alone, but that's almost never the whole truth. Because here's the paradox. Most people without friends desperately want friends. They're not misanthropes. They're not antisocial in the clinical sense. They don't hate people. They're just caught in a loop they don't know how to break. They want connection but have forgotten how to build it. Or maybe they never learned in the first place. The skills everyone else seemed to absorb naturally, through childhood playdates and high school lunch tables and college dorm rooms, somehow bypassed them entirely. And now they're 30, 35, 40. And friendship, which used to happen accidentally, now requires intention, effort, vulnerability. Things that feel impossible when you're already convinced you're not worth knowing. So they don't avoid people out of preference. They avoid people out of protection. Because if you never try, you never have to face the confirmation that maybe, just maybe, you really are as uninteresting as you fear. There's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It's what happens when you try repeatedly and fail repeatedly until you stop trying altogether. Not because you don't want to succeed, but because your nervous system has learned that effort doesn't matter. The outcome is always the same. For people without friends, this often starts early. Maybe you were the kid who got picked last, who ate lunch alone, who threw a birthday party and no one came. Maybe you moved schools a lot, or your parents were cold, or you were bullied just enough to learn that visibility equals danger. Or maybe nothing dramatic happened at all. Maybe you were just a little quieter, a little slower to warm up, and in the fast-moving social ecosystem of childhood, that was enough to be left behind. And here's the cruel part. Once you fall behind socially, catching up becomes exponentially harder. Because while other kids were learning how to read social cues, how to banter, how to navigate conflict and repair ruptures, you were learning how to be invisible, how to entertain yourself, how to convince yourself you didn't need what you weren't getting. You became good at being alone. So good that it became your identity. And now, decades later, you're fluent in solitude but illiterate in friendship. And the world doesn't offer remedial classes. Meet Sarah, 32, works in data analysis, competent, polite, forgettable. She has coworkers she eats lunch with sometimes, but they never invite her out after work. She's in a book club, but when the meeting ends, everyone pairs off into existing friendships and she drives home alone. She's not unlikable. She's just not memorable. She doesn't know how to make herself interesting without feeling like she's performing. And she can feel, in real time, when someone's attention drifts away from her mid-conversation. So she's learned to take up less space, to ask questions instead of offering opinions, to laugh at other people's jokes and never tell her own. She thinks this makes her easier to be around. What it actually does is make her easier to forget. Meet Tom, 41, divorced, no kids. His best friend from college moved to Seattle 7 years ago, and they text maybe twice a year. He goes to the gym. He has hobbies. He's even tried meetup groups for hiking, for board games, for beer tasting. And it always goes the same way. Pleasant small talk, exchanges of numbers that never turn into plans. The slow fade into nothing. He can't figure out what he's doing wrong. He shows up, he's friendly, but somehow he's always on the periphery, never quite inside the circle. What he doesn't realize is that he's trying to make friends the way you'd try to complete a transaction. Show up, be nice, expect results. But friendship isn't transactional. It's iterative. It's vulnerable. It requires letting people see you in unflattering light and trusting they'll stay anyway. And Tom hasn't let anyone see him, really see him, since the divorce. Maybe longer. Meet Aisha, 27. Outgoing online, invisible in person. She has thousands of followers. She's witty on Twitter. In her replies, she's everyone's favorite mutual. But she hasn't had a real-life friend since high school. And the gap between her digital persona and her offline silence is so wide she feels like two different people. Online, she can edit, she can craft, she can be the version of herself she wishes she was. In person, she freezes. The wit evaporates. The timing is off. She can see people's interest dim in real time, and it confirms everything she fears, that her real self isn't enough, that only the curated version is lovable. So she stays online, where connection is easier, where loneliness feels like a choice. Let's go deeper. What's really happening here isn't a skills deficit, it's an attachment wound. Most people without friends grew up in environments where connection wasn't safe, wasn't modeled, or wasn't available. Maybe their parents were emotionally unavailable. Maybe love was conditional. Maybe they learned early that needing people leads to disappointment, so they built walls instead of bridges. And those walls worked. For a while, they protected you from rejection, from abandonment, from the pain of wanting someone who doesn't want you back. But walls don't distinguish. They keep out danger, yes, but they also keep out intimacy, spontaneity, joy, all the things that make friendship possible. And here's the paradox. The more you protect yourself from loneliness, the lonelier you become. There's also the issue of what psychologists call social atrophy. Friendship is a skill, and like any skill, it deteriorates without practice. If you haven't had close friends in years, you've lost touch with the rhythms of reciprocal intimacy. You don't know how much to share or when. You don't know how to ask for what you need. You don't know how to show up for someone else without it feeling performative. You're not broken. You're just out of practice. But when you're surrounded by people who make it look effortless, out of practice feels indistinguishable from fundamentally defective. And so the shame cycle continues. You're lonely because you have no friends. You have no friends because you're too anxious to make them. You're too anxious because you're ashamed of being lonely. Round and round, let's sit with the feeling, the actual feeling of having no friends. It's waking up on your birthday and realizing no one's going to text. Or worse, only your mom will. It's getting sick and having no one to ask for help. So you drag yourself to the pharmacy, feverish and dizzy, because there's no other option. It's having good news, a promotion, a creative breakthrough, something that makes you feel alive, and having no one to tell. So the joy just sits inside you, unexpressed, until it starts to feel silly. It's seeing a meme about tagging your best friend and feeling a small, sharp grief you can't name. It's the silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses in, The kind that makes you turn on podcasts and YouTube videos just to hear human voices, even if they're not talking to you. It's wondering if you're the only person alive who feels this way, and knowing, logically, you're not, but feeling, emotionally, like you must be. Because if other people felt this bad, surely they'd do something about it. Surely they'd fix it. Unless it's unfixable. Unless you're the problem. Unless this is just what you deserve. But here's what we don't talk about enough. The quiet dignity in continuing. In waking up every day and going through the motions even though no one's watching. Even though no one would notice if you didn't. In still trying, even after 100 failed attempts. In still showing up to that meetup group even though you know you'll probably drive home alone. In refusing to let loneliness make you cruel. In staying soft even when the world feels hard. That's not pathetic. That's not weakness. That's resilience in its most raw and uncelebrated form. So what do we do with this? How do we break a cycle that's been spinning for years, maybe decades? The answer isn't just put yourself out there. That's what everyone says, and it's useless. Because the issue isn't exposure. It's safety. You need to find places where connection doesn't feel like performance. Where you can show up as you are, awkward and rusty and imperfect, and not be punished for it. Sometimes that's a therapist's office. Sometimes it's an online community where the pressure of face-to-face is removed. Sometimes it's a hobby you actually care about, not one you chose because you thought it would yield friends. You need to start small. One person, one conversation, one moment of honesty that isn't met with rejection. Because what you're really looking for isn't a friend group. It's proof. Proof that you're not as unlovable as you've come to believe. Proof that connection is possible. Proof that the walls can come down without everything collapsing. And that proof doesn't come from 100 shallow interactions. It comes from one real one. You also need to grieve. Grieve the friendships you didn't have in high school. Grieve the version of yourself that might have been different if you'd grown up in a different family, a different town, a different body. Grieve the years you spent alone, not because they were wasted, but because they were hard, and hard things deserve to be mourned. You can't build something new on top of unprocessed loss. The foundation won't hold. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Some people will go their whole lives without a best friend, without a group, without the kind of ride or die, know each other's coffee order closeness that movies make seem universal. And that doesn't mean they failed. It just means their life took a different shape. Maybe you'll find one person, just one, who sees you and stays. Maybe you'll build a patchwork of partial connections, acquaintances who become familiar, digital friends who feel real even if you've never met. Maybe you'll learn to be your own companion in a way that's not sad, just intentional. Or maybe, if you keep trying, keep softening, keep showing up, you'll find your people. Late, different than you imagined. But yours. There's no guarantee. That's the terrifying part. But there's also no deadline, no point at which it's too late. As long as you're alive, connection is possible. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. There's a moment, late at night, when the loneliness is loudest, when you've scrolled to the bottom of every feed, when the silence feels like evidence, when you wonder if this is just how your life will be. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can let it confirm the story, that you're broken, unlovable, destined to be alone. Or you can let it be what it is, a feeling. Painful, yes. Real, yes. But not a verdict. Because the people who matter, the people worth knowing, aren't looking for someone polished and perfect and effortlessly charming. They're looking for someone real, someone honest, someone willing to be seen. And you are that. Beneath the fear and the rust and the years of protective silence, you are that. You've just forgotten how to let it show. But forgetting isn't permanent. And loneliness, however long it's lasted, isn't a life sentence. It's a season. A painful one. Maybe a long one. But seasons change. And so can you. Not by becoming someone else. Not by fixing what was never broken. But by believing, just a little, that you might be worth knowing. and then letting one person find out if that's true. Because maybe the opposite of loneliness isn't a crowd. It's one person who makes you feel less alone. And that person exists. You just haven't met them yet. Or maybe you have, and you just need to let them in.